Dad made his announcement over Christmas dinner. "We're selling the business. You get nothing." My siblings cheered, glasses raised, smiles wide. Not one of them looked at me. I set down my fork slowly. "Dad, who's the buyer?" He straightened in his chair, proud. "Some firm?" "Veltran Capital. $61 million. Then I smiled, quietly, almost to myself. "Dad, I am Veltran Capital." His smile froze. The fork slipped from my sister's hand, and the room fell completely silent. I'm standing in my childhood dining room on Christmas Eve, and my father just told everyone he's selling the family business for $61 million. My brother's grinning. My sister's crying happy tears. My mother's squeezing my father's hand like he'd just announced he found the cure for cancer. And I'm the only person at this table who knows the truth. I am the buyer. Let me back up, because I need you to understand how I got here. Not the whole life story. I don't have time for that, and you don't need it. But you need to understand what happened in the 6 weeks before this dinner. 6 weeks that changed everything. It was early November when I saw the document. I was in my office in Austin going through a due diligence package my attorney had sent over. We were in month 3 of negotiations to acquire a regional industrial supply company. Good margins. Solid client base. The kind of boring, profitable business that private equity firms dream about. I'd structured the deal through a blind trust specifically so the seller wouldn't know who I was. Standard practice when you have a reason to stay anonymous. My firm, Veltran Capital, had made the offer. The seller's attorney handled everything. Clean. Professional. Exactly how these things are supposed to work. I was on page 47 of the purchase agreement when I saw it. Distribution structure. Equity allocation upon sale. Richard Douglas Mercer, 15%. Diane Patricia. Mercer, 15%. Michael Richard Mercer, 40%. Allison Marie Grayson, 30%. I read it twice. Then I checked the cover page of the document. Seller. Mercer Industrial Supply Company, Inc., my father's company. My last name. And my name was nowhere in that distribution structure. I set my phone down on my kitchen counter, walked to the window, looked out at downtown Austin for what felt like an hour but was probably 5 minutes. Then I booked a flight home for Christmas, because here's what you need to understand about my family. We're not the kind of people who talk about feelings. We're not the kind of people who have big emotional conversations over dinner. We're the kind of people who show up, who do the work, who keep moving forward and assume everyone else is doing the same. My father built Mercer Industrial Supply from nothing. He started in 1982 with a pickup truck and a handshake deal to supply rebar to a construction site outside Houston. 42 years later, he had a fleet of 30 trucks, 2 warehouses, and annual revenue around $12 million. Not Fortune 500, not Silicon Valley, just a solid, profitable, regional business that kept food on our table and paid for college, and gave my parents the kind of life they'd always wanted. Michael went to work for Dad right out of college. Started in the warehouse. Worked his way up to vice president of operations over 15 years. He knew every driver by name. He could quote margins on rebar and PVC pipe from memory. He was the son my father had always wanted. Allison came in later. After her marketing degree didn't land her the agency job she wanted, Dad created a position for her. Director of Sales. She was good at it. Charming. Persistent. She built relationships with contractors that brought in $2 million in new business her first year. And then there was me. I worked summers at Mercer Industrial all through high school. Filing, answering phones, running errands. I liked it. I liked the rhythm of the place. I liked watching my father negotiate with suppliers and solve problems that seemed impossible until he made 3 phone calls and suddenly they weren't. I went to college thinking I'd come back and work there full time, but somewhere in my junior year something shifted. I took an economics course, then a finance course. Then I got recruited for a consulting internship at McKinsey. My father didn't understand it. "You're going to wear a suit and tell other people how to run their businesses?" he said, "instead of running your own?" "I'm 21, I told him. "I don't know how to run a business yet." "Then come work for me and learn." But I didn't. I took the McKinsey offer. I moved to Dallas. I spent 3 years learning how private equity firms bought and sold companies, how supply chains worked, how margins compressed or expanded based on 1,000 tiny decisions most people never noticed. And I never went back. My father didn't say much about it. He didn't have to. I could feel the disappointment every time I came home for Thanksgiving or Christmas. The way he'd ask about my work and then change the subject after 30 seconds. The way he'd light up when Michael talked about a new contract or when Allison closed a big sale. I told myself it didn't matter. I was building my own life, my own career. I didn't need his approval. But I still didn't know the worst part of what was coming. I left McKinsey in 2017. I'd saved almost everything I'd earned, $130,000 over 3 years. I had a friend from business school who was flipping houses in Austin. He needed a partner. I wrote him a check for $65,000 and we bought our first property 3 weeks later. A foreclosure in East Austin. 2 bedrooms, 1 bathroom, foundation issues. We spent 4 months gutting it. I learned how to tile a bathroom, how to negotiate with contractors, how to read an inspection report and know which problems mattered and which ones didn't. We sold it for a $48,000 profit. We did it again and again. 6 houses in 2 years. By the end of 2019, I had $400,000 in the bank. I didn't tell my family, not because I was hiding it, but because they never asked. When they asked what I was doing, I said consulting work, and they nodded and moved on. They assumed I was getting by, maybe struggling a little. Definitely not making the kind of money Michael was making as VP of operations. And I let them think that, because it was easier than explaining. In 2020, I took that $400,000 and started angel investing. 6 companies, all logistics software, all designed to solve problems I'd watched my father deal with for years. Route optimization, inventory tracking, demand forecasting. 3 of those companies got acquired within 18 months. My $400,000 turned into $2.3 million. I rolled everything into a fund, Veltran Capital, LLC, registered in Delaware. 1 limited partner, me. I hired an attorney. I hired an accountant. I built a portfolio. By 2024, I had $73 million. And my family still thought I was just getting by in tech. So when I saw that distribution structure in November, I didn't feel surprised. I felt something colder than that. Like a door closing that I hadn't even realized was still open. My father had decided I didn't deserve a share of the business he built. The business I'd spent summers working in, the business I'd walked away from to build something of my own, and he hadn't even called to tell me he was selling it. I could have walked away. I could have pulled out of the deal, told my attorney to pass on the acquisition, moved on to the next opportunity. There were always more deals, always more companies to buy, but I didn't do that. Instead, I got on a plane to Houston 3 weeks before Christmas. I told my parents I was coming home early this year, that I wanted to spend more time with the family. My mother sounded thrilled. My father sounded distracted. Michael said he'd see me at Christmas Eve dinner. Nobody suspected anything. I spent those 3 weeks finishing due diligence. I had my attorney request additional documents, tax returns, fleet maintenance records, client contracts. I read every page. I knew that business better than my father did by the time Christmas Eve rolled around, and I knew exactly what I was going to do. The dinner started normally. My mother had made ham, mashed potatoes, green beans with almonds, the same meal she'd made every Christmas Eve for 30 years. My niece and nephews were running around the living room. Michael's wife was helping in the kitchen. Allison's husband was talking to my father about football. I sat at the table and waited. My father stood up at the head of the table with his wine glass raised, and that smile I'd seen him wear at every major family milestone for 33 years. "I have an announcement," he said. Michael set down his fork. Allison straightened in her chair. My mother stopped mid-pour and looked at him like she already knew what was coming. I kept eating. "Diane and I have made a decision," he continued. "After 42 years, we're selling Mercer Industrial. The deal closes in February." Allison gasped. Michael's face split into a grin. My mother reached over and squeezed Dad's hand. $61 million, Dad said. "The buyer is some private equity outfit out of Delaware, Veltran Capital. Never heard of them, but their offer was clean." Michael raised his glass. "To Dad." and to finally cashing out. Everyone raised their glasses. I didn't. My father looked down the table at me for the first time since he started talking. "Catherine," he said slowly, "this doesn't involve you. You left the business. You made that choice." I nodded, set down my fork, picked up my water glass, and took a long drink. "Who's the buyer?" I asked. "I just told you. Veltran Capital." "And you spoke with them directly?" He frowned. "Their attorney handled the negotiations. Standard process." "Why?" I stood up, pulled my phone out of my pocket, opened my email, found the message I'd sent 3 days earlier, and turned the screen toward him. "Dad," I said quietly, "I am Veltran Capital." The room went silent. Not the polite kind of silence where someone's about to laugh, the kind where all the air gets sucked out and no one remembers how to breathe. Owen, Michael's oldest son, 7 years old, looked up from his plate. "Is everything okay?" he asked. No one answered him. But what happened next was going to change everything. Before I tell you what happened after I walked out of that house, I need to know something. What would you do? Would you forgive them? Would you try to fix it? Or would you do exactly what I did? Because what came next changed everything. And I need you to understand. I didn't plan it. I didn't sit in my car that night plotting revenge. I just made one phone call. And that single call brought their entire world crashing down in ways none of us saw coming. My father's face didn't move. He just stared at the phone screen like it was written in a language he didn't recognize. Michael leaned forward first. His voice came out sharp. "What the hell are you talking about?" I turned the phone toward him. Subject line: RE. Letter of Intent. Mercer Industrial Supply Co. Sender: Catherine Mercer, Managing Partner, Veltran Capital LLC. "I'm the firm that's buying the business," I said. "I've been negotiating with your attorney for 4 months. You didn't know it was me because I structured the acquisition through a blind trust as the limited partner and used an independent advisory firm to handle all direct contact. Standard practice when a buyer has a reason to stay anonymous." Allison's fork hit her plate. The sound cracked through the room. My father finally moved. He reached for the phone. I pulled it back. "You're lying," he said. "I'm not. You don't have $61 million. I have 73, I said. "I was going to use the rest to modernize your fleet and expand into Oklahoma. But that was before tonight." My mother's hand went to her mouth. She wasn't crying yet, but I could see it coming. That look she got when something happened that she didn't know how to fix. "Catherine," she whispered. "Where did you—" "I built it," I said. Michael cut in. His face was red now. "That's not possible. You were in tech. You were—" "I was never in tech," I said. "I left McKinsey in 2017 and started buying distressed properties with a partner. 6 of them in 2 years. Then I took the profit and started angel investing in logistics software. Your industry, Dad. I understood the margins. 3 of those companies got acquired. I rolled everything into a fund in 2020. Veltran Capital LLC, registered in Delaware. 1 limited partner. Me." Allison was shaking her head. "You never told us. You never asked." "That's not fair," she said. "You never talked about what you were doing. You always just said consulting work. And you assumed that meant I was broke," I said. "All of you did." My father's jaw tightened. "Then why did you want the business?" I'd thought about how to answer that for 6 weeks. Standing in my kitchen with that distribution page open on my phone, I'd told myself it was purely financial. A clean deal in a sector I knew. But somewhere between the second site visit and the 3rd round of due diligence, something else had settled in. A need I hadn't named until my therapist asked me to. "It started as a good deal," I said. "A business I understood in a sector I'd been investing in for years. Your EBITDA was strong. Your client retention was better than industry average. The fleet needed capital investment, but that was manageable. It made sense financially." I looked at him steadily. "But I think I wanted you to see me," I said. "Someone who understood what you built. Someone who could run it. Someone who cared enough to pay 15% over market value because it mattered." The words hung in the air. My father's expression didn't change. "But you didn't put me in the term sheet," I said. "You structured the payout to cut me out entirely. 40% to Michael." 30 to Allison, 30 to you and Mom, and nothing for me. You didn't even call to tell me you were selling. Michael stood up. Because you don't work there. You haven't worked there in over a decade. Why would you get a share? Because I'm your sister. That's not how business works. You're right, I said. It's not, which is why I made an offer as a buyer. A fair offer, a generous offer, and your father accepted it without ever mentioning my name to any of you. I turned back to my father. When did you decide? I asked. When did you sit down and decide I didn't deserve anything? He didn't answer right away. He was looking at me like he was seeing someone he'd never met before. You left, he finally said. You walked away from the family business to go make PowerPoints for strangers. You didn't want to be part of what we were building. I was 22 years old, and you made your choice. So this is punishment, I said. This is reality, he said. Michael put in 15 years. Allison put in 8. You put in nothing. You don't get to show up now and act like you're entitled to something you didn't earn. My mother reached for his arm. Richard, he pulled away from her. No, she needs to hear this. She walked away. She chose her life over this family. And now she wants to come back and buy the business like some kind of corporate raider, and we're supposed to be grateful? I offered you $61 million, I said quietly. 15% over market value. I was going to keep everyone employed. I was going to expand. I was going to build something that would have lasted another 40 years. Then why didn't you tell us it was you? Michael demanded. Why hide behind some company name? Because I wanted to know, I said. I wanted to know if you'd cut me out even if you didn't know I was watching. Allison started crying. Real tears now. Catherine, we didn't mean to hurt you. Yes, you did, I said. Maybe you didn't think about it that way. Maybe you told yourself I was fine, that I was successful on my own, that I didn't need it. But you knew. All of you knew I wasn't in that agreement, and none of you said a word. The silence stretched out. Owen was crying now too. He didn't understand what was happening, but he understood that something was very wrong. My father's face was stone. What do you want, Catherine? He asked. And that's when I smiled. Not big, just enough. I don't want anything, I said. Not anymore. I picked up my coat from the back of the chair. I'm withdrawing the offer, I said. Effective immediately. You'll receive formal notice from my attorney Monday morning. The deal is dead. My mother stood up so fast her chair almost fell over. Catherine, you can't. I can, I said. The letter of intent includes an exclusivity termination clause. We're inside the notice window. I had 60 days to complete due diligence and finalize terms. I'm on day 53. Veltran Capital has determined that the acquisition no longer aligns with our strategic objectives. There's no recourse. The deal is over. Michael's face went white. You're killing this deal because you're mad Dad didn't give you a cut? No, I said. I'm killing this deal because you spent 6 weeks planning how to spend money from a sale you didn't know I was funding. And not one of you thought to pick up the phone and tell me it was happening. I looked at my father one more time. You taught me that business is business, I said. No emotion, no sentiment, just numbers and terms and knowing when to walk away from a bad deal. I opened the door. This is a bad deal, I said, and I walked out. No one followed me. I sat in my car in their driveway for 20 minutes with the engine running and the heat on full blast. My hands were shaking. Not from cold, from something else. Something that felt like relief and rage mixed together until I couldn't tell which one was winning. My phone started ringing. Michael first. I watched it buzz against the passenger seat. Then Allison. Then my mother. Then my father. I turned the phone off. I drove back to my apartment in downtown Austin. 4 hours on I-10 with the radio off and nothing but the sound of the highway and my own breathing. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I just drove. When I got home, I poured myself a glass of wine and sat on the couch in the dark until 2 a.m. I kept thinking about my father's face when I showed him that email. The way he'd looked at me like I was a stranger, like I'd betrayed him by being someone he hadn't expected me to be. And I kept thinking about what my old mentor James had told me when I was 26 and struggling to make my first real investment decision. The people who love you will try to keep you small, he'd said. Not because they're bad people, but because they need you to stay the person they think you are. And when you become someone bigger than that, they'll punish you for it. I hadn't understood what he meant back then. I understood now. The next morning, I called my attorney. Her name was Bryn. We'd worked together on 4 acquisitions over the past 3 years. She was 41 years old, divorced, and completely uninterested in my emotional reasoning for pulling out of deals. "You're sure?" she asked. "I'm sure. They're going to come after you," she said. "The seller's attorney is going to call me 50 times. Your father's going to call you twice that. They're going to tell you this is emotional, that you're making a mistake, that you're throwing away a good deal because you're hurt. Let them. And you understand what this means for them," she said. "Veltron's offer was 15% above market value. Without you, they're back to shopping the business in a market that's already soft for regional distributors. They might get 50 million if they're lucky, maybe 45. "I know." There was a pause on the line. "Catherine," Bryn said carefully, "I need to make sure you're doing this for the right reasons. Because if you're doing this to hurt them, you need to tell me now. I don't represent clients who use acquisitions as emotional weapons. I'm not doing it to hurt them," I said. "I'm doing it because I can't be in business with people who don't see me." Another pause. "Okay," she said. "I'll send the withdrawal notice Monday at 9 a.m. She did. By noon, my father's attorney had called her 6 times. By 2 p.m., Michael had sent me 14 text messages. By 5 p.m., my mother had left a voicemail that was just her crying. I didn't respond to any of them. And then it got so much worse. Because what I didn't tell my family at that Christmas dinner was what my withdrawal was going to do to their options. Veltron Capital's offer wasn't just high, it was clean. No financing contingencies, no earnouts, no retention requirements, just a straight cash purchase with a 45-day close. That kind of offer doesn't come around often. Especially not for a regional industrial supply company with an aging fleet and client concentration risk in the Houston market. My father had been shopping the business quietly for 8 months before my offer came in. He'd talked to 3 other private equity firms. 2 of them passed after preliminary diligence. The third made an offer, $42 million with a 2-year earnout tied to revenue targets my father would never hit. He'd turned it down. And then Veltron had showed up with $61 million cash and he'd stopped looking. Now, Veltron was gone. And everyone knew it. Because here's how the private equity world works. It's small. People talk. When a deal falls apart, word spreads. And when word spreads that a seller walked away from a premium offer, other buyers start asking questions. What did due diligence find? Why did the buyer walk? What's wrong with the business? By the end of January, my father had 2 firms looking at the business again. One of them was the same firm that had offered $42 million 8 months earlier. This time they offered $38 million. No earnout. Take it or leave it. The other firm didn't make an offer at all. They just stopped returning calls. Michael called me in February. I didn't answer. He left a voicemail. "Catherine, we need to talk. Dad's not doing well. The business is bleeding cash. Clients are hearing rumors about the sale and they're moving to other suppliers. We need a buyer. If you still want the business, we can work something out. We can include you in the distribution. I deleted the message. Because here's what you need to understand. I didn't pull out of that deal to hurt them. I pulled out because I finally understood what they thought of me. And once you see that, you can't unsee it. My father thought I was weak. That I'd walked away from the family business because I couldn't handle it. That I'd chosen the easy path of consulting and tech startups while Michael did the real work. Michael thought I was irrelevant. That I'd made my choice and didn't get to come back and claim a piece of something I hadn't built. Allison thought I was lucky. That I'd stumbled into some money and didn't understand how hard real work was. And my mother thought I was fine. That I didn't need them. That I was successful enough on my own that being excluded wouldn't matter. They were all wrong, but I was done trying to prove it. What came next was even more devastating. In March, Michael showed up at my office. I didn't know he was coming. My assistant called me and said there was someone in the lobby asking for me. No appointment, no warning. Just Michael standing there in jeans and a button-down shirt looking like he hadn't slept in a week. I almost told her to send him away, but I didn't. I went downstairs. He was sitting in one of the chairs by the window, staring out at the street. When he saw me, he stood up. He looked older than he had at Christmas. Thinner. There were circles under his eyes. "Catherine," he said. "Michael, can we talk?" I looked at him for a long moment. Then I nodded. 5 minutes. We went to a coffee shop 2 blocks away. I ordered black coffee. He ordered the same. We sat at a table in the back where no one could hear us. "Dad's going to lose the business," Michael said. "I know." The Ohio Consolidator came back with a new offer. $34 million. They want to cut half the workforce. They want to consolidate operations into their Columbus facility. They want to strip the business down to the client contracts and the equipment and leave everything else behind. That's what consolidators do. Catherine, he's going to take it. Then he's going to take it. Michael's jaw tightened. "You did this." "No," I said. "I made an offer. He accepted it. Then I found out he'd structured the deal to exclude me and I withdrew. That's business. That's revenge. That's consequence," I said. "There's a difference." He leaned forward. "What do you want me to say? That we were wrong? That we should have told you? Fine. We were wrong. We should have told you. Dad should have included you in the distribution. Is that what you want to hear?" "I don't want to hear anything," I said. "I wanted you to see me. I wanted Dad to see me. I wanted to sit at that table on Christmas and have him say my name when he announced the sale. That's all I wanted. And you couldn't even do that. Because we didn't know," Michael said. "We didn't know you had this kind of money. We didn't know you were successful," I said. "You didn't know I was successful because you never asked. Because you assumed that when I left the business I was giving up, that I was choosing the easy path, that I wasn't worth paying attention to. That's not fair, isn't it?" I said. "When was the last time you asked me about my work, Michael? Real questions. Not polite small talk over Thanksgiving turkey. When was the last time you asked me what I was building or what I cared about or what I'd accomplished?" He didn't answer. "You want to know why I structured the deal through a blind trust?" I asked. "It wasn't just about privacy. It was because I needed to know if you'd cut me out even when you thought no one was watching. And you did. All of you did." Michael's face was red now. Angry. "So that's it? You destroy Dad's business because we hurt your feelings." "I didn't destroy anything," I said. "I withdrew from a deal I had every legal right to walk away from. Your father's business is struggling because he deferred maintenance for 3 years waiting for a sale that he thought would solve all his problems. Client concentration in a soft market, an aging fleet, no succession plan. Those are his problems, Michael, not mine. You could fix them," he said. "If you still wanted the business." "I don't." "Why not?" "Because I don't want to be in business with people who only see my value when they need something from me." The words hit him like a slap. We sat in silence for a long time. Finally, Michael spoke. His voice was quieter now. "Mom's not doing well. She won't eat. She just sits in the living room and cries. She keeps saying she doesn't understand what happened, that she doesn't understand how we got here." "Then maybe you should explain it to her," I said. "Catherine, you made a choice," I said. "All of you made a choice. You chose to exclude me from something that mattered. You chose to assume I wouldn't find out or wouldn't care. And now you're dealing with the consequences of that choice." I stood up. "I hope Dad gets a better offer," I said. "I really do. But it's not going to come from me." Michael didn't try to stop me when I left. 3 weeks later, Allison sent me a letter. Actual handwritten letter on nice paper in an envelope with a stamp. I almost threw it away without opening it. But I didn't. It was 4 pages long. She told me she was sorry, that she'd never thought about what the exclusion would feel like from my side, that she'd assumed I was fine because I always seemed fine, that she'd been so focused on what the sale would mean for her family, the house she wanted to buy, the private school tuition she wanted to pay, that she hadn't stopped to think about what it meant that my name wasn't on that agreement. She said she'd talked to Dad, that she'd tried to get him to reconsider, that she'd asked him why he structured it the way he did, and he'd said, "Catherine made her choice when she left. She said she didn't know how to fix it. She said she loved me. I read the letter 3 times. Then I put it in a drawer and didn't respond. Because love isn't enough when you're dealing with people who only see you the way they need you to be. In April, they sold to the Ohio Consolidator. $34 million. The announcement went out on a Tuesday afternoon. I saw it in my news feed, one of those automated industry updates that I'd set up years ago to track regional distributors. Mercer Industrial Supply sold to Midwest Supply Chain Solutions. Terms undisclosed. Expected close in 60 days. I knew the terms. I knew exactly what that sale looked like because I'd seen 100 deals like it. After taxes and legal fees and paying down outstanding debt, my father would walk away with maybe $6 million. Michael and Allison would split $13 million. Maybe? Not $61 million. Not the clean, simple, life-changing sale they'd been planning for. $34 million in a deal that was going to gut the workforce and strip the business down to nothing. My phone rang 5 minutes after the announcement. My father. I stared at the screen until it stopped ringing. He didn't leave a voicemail, but I still didn't know the worst part of what was coming. The deal closed in June. I didn't hear about it from my family. I heard about it from an industry contact who sent me a message on LinkedIn congratulating me on dodging a bullet with the Mercer acquisition. I asked him what he meant. He sent me a link to a trade publication article. The headline, Midwest Supply Chain Solutions acquires Texas distributor, plans immediate restructuring. The article was 3 paragraphs. It said Midwest had purchased Mercer Industrial Supply for an undisclosed sum and planned to consolidate operations within 90 days. 23 employees would be laid off. The Houston warehouse would close. All client accounts would be transferred to the Columbus facility. I read it twice. Then I closed my laptop and stared at the wall. 23 employees. People my father had worked with for years, some of them for decades. Jerry in shipping, who'd been there since 1997. Maria in accounting, who'd helped me with summer inventory counts when I was 16. Tom, who drove the same route every Tuesday and knew every site supervisor by name. All of them gone, because my father had taken the only offer he could get after I walked away. I told myself it wasn't my fault, that he'd made his choice, that I'd made mine, that this was business, and business was about numbers and terms and knowing when to cut your losses. But I couldn't shake the image of Jerry packing up his desk, Maria updating her resume, Tom looking for another job at 63 years old in a market that didn't want him. My therapist asked me how I felt about it. I didn't know how to answer. Guilty? She offered. No, I said. Not guilty. Just sad. Sad that they lost their jobs? Sad that it had to happen this way. Did it have to happen this way? I looked at her. Yes. Why? Because they needed to understand what they did. And do you think they understand now? I didn't answer. In July, my mother called. I saw her name on the screen and something in me broke. I answered. Catherine, she said. Her voice sounded small, fragile. Hi, Mom. I need to see you. I don't think that's a good idea. Please, she said. I'm in Houston this weekend. I know you're in Austin. It's just an hour and a half. Please. I closed my eyes. Where? We met at a Starbucks in the Galleria. Neutral ground. Public. Somewhere I could leave if I needed to. She was already there when I arrived, sitting at a table outside with a latte she hadn't touched. She looked older, smaller, like something had been carved out of her and she was still figuring out how to stand without it. I ordered black coffee, sat down across from her, waited. Your father's not the same, she said after a long silence. He doesn't sleep. He sits in his office and looks at the old photos from when you were little. Pictures of you at the warehouse, you and Michael in the truck, the Christmas party in 1998 when you helped him hand out bonuses. I didn't say anything. He didn't mean to hurt you, she said. Yes, he did, I said. He meant exactly that. Maybe he didn't think about it in those words. Maybe he told himself it was fair because I left the business. But he structured that deal to cut me out, and he didn't lose sleep over it until I was the one holding the contract. She looked down at her cup. Michael's struggling. The money's going faster than he thought. Allison bought the house, but she's realizing she can't afford the property taxes. They're both scared. I finished. They're scared because $7 million sounds like a lot until you try to live on it for the rest of your life. Your father and I are fine, she said. But the kids are not kids, I said. Michael is 36. Allison is 30. They're adults who made decisions, and now they're living with the consequences. You could help them. Why would I do that? Because they're your family. They didn't treat me like family, I said. They treated me like an outsider who didn't deserve a seat at the table. And when I showed up with $61 million and a plan to keep the business running and everyone employed, they still didn't see me. They just saw someone trying to take something that wasn't mine. My mother's eyes filled with tears. What do you want me to say? I don't want you to say anything, I said. I want you to understand that I spent 10 years building something on my own while you assumed I was struggling. I want you to understand that I came home for Christmas ready to be the buyer who saved Dad's legacy, and you excluded me like I didn't matter. I want you to understand that I didn't walk away because I was angry. I walked away because I finally saw how you all really felt about me. The tears spilled over. She wiped them away with the back of her hand. I'm sorry, she whispered. I know you are, I said. But I don't forgive you. She flinched like I'd hit her. I don't forgive you because you're not sorry you excluded me, I said. You're sorry it cost you something. You're sorry the deal fell apart and the business got sold to someone who gutted it. You're sorry Michael and Allison are scared. But you're not sorry for what you did to me. You're sorry for what I did to you. I stood up, picked up my bag. Tell Dad I hope he sleeps better soon, I said. She reached for my hand. I pulled away. Catherine, please, I have to go, I said. And I did. I walked back to my car, drove to my apartment, poured myself a glass of wine, sat on the couch and cried for the first time since Christmas. Not because I regretted what I did, but because it was final now. There was no going back from this. No reconciliation. No moment where we'd all sit down and realize we'd made mistakes and find a way forward. It was over. Within 48 hours, their lives were turned upside down in a way they never could have imagined. That was 11 months ago. I haven't spoken to any of them since. Michael sends emails occasionally. Short ones. Updates about his kids. News about people from the old neighborhood. He never mentions the business. He never mentions money. He never asks how I'm doing. Allison sent me a birthday card last year. It had a picture of a sunset on the front and a message inside that said, "Thinking of you." No note, just her signature. My father sent nothing. My mother texts sometimes, just pictures. Owen at his baseball game. My niece's piano recital. The garden she planted in the backyard. No words, just images of a life I'm not part of anymore. I don't respond. Beltran Capital acquired 2 companies last year. Both logistics firms. Both profitable. Both deals that closed in under 60 days with no drama and no family meetings and no questions about who I was or what I deserved. I have 3 analysts working under me now. Good people, smart, hungry. They don't care that I'm a woman. They don't care that I'm 33. They care that I can read a balance sheet and structure a deal and know when to walk away. My portfolio is worth $92 million now. I bought a house in Terrytown with a view of the lake. 3 bedrooms, 2 bathrooms, a study with built-in shelves where I keep the books on private equity and supply chain management that I've been collecting for years. I go to therapy every other week. Same therapist, same office. We talk about boundaries and family systems and how to build a life that doesn't need anyone's permission. I sleep fine. Last month, I was in a coffee shop working on a term sheet when a man at the next table asked me what I did for a living. Private equity, I said. Successful? I looked up at him. He was about 40, wedding ring, laptop open, probably working on something similar. Successful enough, I said. He smiled. Family business? I thought about that for a long time. About my father's warehouse, about summers answering phones, about the way Michael used to let me ride in the truck with him when he made deliveries, about Allison teaching me how to cold call contractors when I was 19, about the way they looked at me on Christmas Eve when I told them I was the buyer, about the distribution structure that had my brother's name and my sister's name and my parents' names, but not mine. No, I said finally. Just me. He nodded, went back to his laptop. I closed mine, picked up my coffee, walked out into the morning sun, got in my car, drove home, and I didn't think about them again. Not that day anyway. Sometimes I still wake up and reach for my phone to text my mother, to tell her about a deal that closed or a property I'm looking at or something funny that happened at the office. And then I remember, and I put the phone down, because I built this life without them. I built $73 million without them. I built a company and a reputation and a future without them. And I'm not going to let them back in just because they finally realized what they lost. Some doors close and they don't open again. This is one of them. I keep the birthday card from Allison in the drawer of my desk. I don't know why. Maybe because it's proof that she tried, that somewhere in all of this, she understood that she'd lost something that mattered. Or maybe I just haven't gotten around to throwing it away yet. Either way, it stays there. Unopened. Unread. Just a piece of cardstock with a sunset on the front and her name signed at the bottom. That's all that's left of them now. A card in a drawer. If this story made you feel something, hit that subscribe button. Because I share real stories about people who finally said enough. And that story on your screen right now? It's about a woman who discovered something that made my situation look simple. Click it. You need to hear what happened to her.